I'm David Wilson. This is my daughter, Mariah.
Hello.
We're here because of my wife and her mom, Peggy Wilson, who was an early member of the Women's Fund board. And, uh, and I'd like to start by giving you just a little touch of back history so you can know why she was an enthusiastic member of the board. When we arrived here in Miami, she was finishing her PhD degree in history from the University of Southern California, and she was studying women and women in the workplace at that time for her PhD degree. She has taught during her lifetime here at Florida International University for many years on the faculty. Even in those early years, as the Women's Fund was getting going, she was busy already teaching about women to young women at the Florida International University. So she has a backstory that made her a perfect match for the Women's Fund as it was coming into being.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. And she was, I think, one of the very early members too. And she was on their board
yeah,
and, as you said, chaired the grants committee too.
yeah,
But I feel like she just had the perfect alignment with what the Women's Fund was doing because she had a lifelong passion for women's issues and for
right.
advocating for women.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Women's Fund made good use of her
Mhm.
as a board member as she oversaw the grants awarding, which was a major activity of the Women's Fund at that time. And it was important for our community and the community of women in Miami at that time because they were making small grants to organizations in Miami and groups in Miami that were just getting on their feet and getting underway in support of women and girls in Miami.
Miami-Dade, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you have told me some about her focus on pay inequity early on in
Yeah.
her studies too, and I think that that really was a driving force in her wanting to be part of the Women's Fund too.
You're right. You're right. She used this book. What was it?
Nickel and dime.
Nickeled and Dimed.
Yeah.
Of course, that linked in with her work at the Labor Center uh, and Labor Research Center at FIU. But she was teaching young women there and men too who would come to her classes. Uh, and she was using those kinds of things like nickel and dimed to give an indication of the inequities that existed for women around this country.
Yeah, pay disparities, which are still a big issue today, and
They
something
continue to be in many fields.
something the Women's Fund still focuses on, which I think is really good.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Um, what impact or legacy do we think she leaves through her work and involvement?
yeah. Well, she was involved not only with the Women's Fund directly, but also at FIU. She was the responsible person who developed a new degree program in conflict resolution, which we seem to need even more of today than we did then, if anything. And so she got the different departments together and developed a program for that and got an award as a builder award at FIU for her efforts in this new program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a memory of one of my first summer jobs was actually at the Women's Fund. And, my mom obviously linked me up with folks over there. And it was, I think it was the summer of 2000, and I was doing data entry. And so Fran Katz was there, Claudia Kitchens, I remember Ann Machado was around. And so I had all these spreadsheets of people's information, and I was compiling basically what became one of the first email lists for the Women's Fund, because email was just kind of starting off then. This is not making me seem very young, but nonetheless, it was so cool because I just felt like I was right there at the hub with all of them and helping them, gather all their information about various donors and sponsors in one place.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. So her legacy also became a little bit of like something that influenced a very early work experience for me,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was very
yeah.
special.
And you might want to mention a time when I was there taking a picture of you and mom.
Oh, well, those are memories and stories. Okay, so now we're going to get into the really fun stuff. Okay, so I think this really captures a bit of who she was too,
Yeah.
because this was when I was a young toddler and you guys were at some kind of a march.
Yes,
And
for the Equal Rights Amendment.
so there's my mom, there's Peggy, and that's me, the little squirt in the stroller. And then the photographer is this guy.
Yeah, and the
And we
banner at the top says it all because this was a march in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment for women,
Mhm.
which was then being debated nationwide and came close to passing. In fact, I have heard recently that enough states have now passed the
Yeah.
ERA that were it not for Congress back years ago having said time's up on this possibility of a constitutional amendment in the United States, it would have become the law of the land. But anyway, it was worth the challenge.
Still fighting some of the same fights,
Yep,
but that's, I think, why it's important to have
yep,
groups like the Women's Fund to be
yes,
doing this advocacy work, especially right now,
yeah,
especially when a lot of rights are being
yes,
infringed upon.
absolutely.
I have another memory I want to share, which
Okay.
was when I was a Girl Scout or maybe a Brownie. There's something called the Junior Jamboree, which takes place in somewhere in South Florida. We were out kind of near the Everglades, I think.
Mhm.
Anyways, big camping weekend, and my mom was a troop leader, and we had to do a performance. And she came up with this idea that me and my fellow Girl Scouts would be different suffragettes. So there'd be Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Sojourner Truth, Alice Paul, Susan B. Anthony. And I remember at the time kind of being like, oh, mom, oh my God, this is so you. Like, I was like a little like, ugh, sorry guys, my mom, she's really into like this whole suffragette thing. And now I look back on it as an adult, I'm like, that's so cool.
Yep.
And we put on a great show, I will say.
And I think this points to some of the things that the Women's Fund is now doing. And I just wanted to say that I was very pleased to see that they've now again restarted the grants program because I happen to think that that's been a wonderful way that the Women's Fund has been able in Miami and Miami-Dade to support women and the development of multiple organizations and individuals who contribute in very different ways today and who would not maybe have been able to do that without the initial little support from the Women's Fund that made that possible. So I hope that's something that continues on in the future.
Yeah. And as somebody who applies for many grants myself, I'm a documentary filmmaker. A lot of what I do is grant based. I must say that seed funding, that first money in, that validation from an outside place is so important and so meaningful when you're like struggling and trying to figure out like how can I get this project off the ground. It's really it's amazing. So I'm also very happy that some of the grants are being spun
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
And I also think that a lot of the work that the Women's Fund is doing now around victims of human trafficking and sexual violence is very, very important, raising awareness about that and helping average people figure out what can I do to help if I see something suspicious. And also data and studies around maternal health and women's health. It's very important. And as always, the economic mobility, which relates back to the grants
mhm,
that Women's Fund has always done. That's yeah, that's it's
yeah,
really great. So, I'm sad that my mom isn't still here to see all the amazing work that the Women's Fund is doing, but I know that she would be super proud.
yeah. We I'd also like to put in a plug for the Women's Fund in terms of their fundraising, just to say that uh, we have been pleased throughout the years, starting with when Peggy was a board member, to be contributing to the Women's Fund, and that contribution has continued to come from our family to the Women's Fund on an annual basis.
Mhm.
And this is 20 years.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So thank you for letting us talk about Peggy Wilson, this wonderful, amazing woman and
Yeah.
early member of this groundbreaking organization. And
Yeah.
we're so happy to still be part of the Women's Fund community and help her legacy live on
Yeah.
through the Women's Fund.
We certainly encourage others to continue to give in this way too. It's a worthy organization. Thank you.
Thank you.